Katarina, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Sweden. I'm just so excited to chat with you again. You were wonderful reaching out back in 2020 when we read the Readers of Broken Wheel Recommend, which unfortunately our copy is out because I recommended it to a patron a couple of weeks ago and she still has it out. So I would be showing that. But today we'll be chatting about Welcome to the Pine Away Motel and Cabins. So first of all, would you like to share a little bit of your background, your history? You know, like, did you always want to be a writer?
Sure, and first of all, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our last discussion. And so great to get to meet you and your reading group again. So yes, I've been pretty much writing my entire life, but you know how it is, life gets in the way and I've done other things as well. So I studied and I wrote academic papers instead of fiction and so on. So when I was about 25 years old, and this is a while ago now, I sort of sat down and I compared the amount of times I spent writing boring school papers and academic stuff with the amount of time I spent writing fiction. And I realized, of course, that I spend a lot more time writing boring stuff than the things I really dreamt about writing. So I promised myself that I would get a job. That was the first part. And then I'd save money and vacation days. And then I'd go away for a month and write. So I could, spend a good portion amount of time writing full time, finishing a novel. And that was my entire goal, just, finishing an idea, writing from chapter 1 to the end. And then didn't have to be good or published. It was pretty much just for like an exercise or for practice. So I just filled it with everything I love in books. And I love small American towns and books about books and bookshops and quirky characters and so on. And that was the very first draft of the Readers of Broken Wheel Recommend, although I have to say it was also terrible, completely unreadable. Nothing happened for like the first 100 pages. So it took a long time after that, the first draft, until it was ready for publication.
Mm-hmm. And that was your debut novel.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm. So now this book, Welcome to the Pine Away Motel and Cabins, how long did it take you to write that book?
It's actually a story that I carried with me for quite a long time. So I worked on it, you can say, for years before I actually sat down and wrote it. And the reason was that I had sort of the first part of the story. I had this idea of writing with a story where the main character died. That was the first sort of small part of the first idea. And then Henny, the main character, came to me very vividly and very clearly. So she walked with me like a ghost, you could say, for years before I managed to actually piece together a story. I think what changed it was when I also added their background as a group and the anti-gay ballot measures in Oregon. And I have a lot of friends from Oregon who told me what it was like to grow up with these measures that came very regularly from 1994 and onwards, and what it meant for them always to have to defend their identity and their rights to exist. So I sort of brought those two ideas or parts together.
Okay. So I know Henny has a very special place in your heart. Could you elaborate a little more about why Henny's so special to you?
I think it's partly because she's so different from me. Henny she hasn't lived a very exciting life, perhaps, and she hasn't done very much. And if you looked at her life sort of from the outside, she hasn't traveled, and she's lived in the same small town where she was born, and she works at the same place. That was her first job. But she has this capacity to love people and to be present in the place where she lives and love the people that she has around her and this small town where she grew up. And I think that capacity for love is what really explains Henny or who she is. And I think that's why why she was such a big part of me for so very long time. So when the story was finished, I have her name tattooed on my wrist as a sort of reminder to keep her with me, and this to a reminder to be more present in the place I'm at the moment, and be open for love and people close to me. And
this, as I was reading the novel, and I feel the same way about your debut novel as well, they would make wonderful films. Don't you agree?
I hope so one day. I think so too.
Now, because they're set in the US, who could you picture as an American actor playing the role of Henny? Did you ever give that any thought?
No, not really. That's a great question. Do you have any in mind?
No.
No. Both.
Well, that will be something for you to think about, because
yes,
someday,
and also perhaps for you to discuss in your group.
Yes,
you can let me know what everyone thought.
Definitely. So if we segue onto your writing, your whole writing process, how many hours a day do you spend writing usually?
It depends very much about what stage of writing a book I'm in. If I'm in the very beginning, when I sort of make things up and decide what's going to be in and write the very first draft, then I could sit perhaps 2-3 hours a day writing, and then I'm just tired and I've sort of used up all my ideas. But if I'm editing, so I have a finished draft and I'm tweaking words or improving the text, then I could sit for like 8 or 9 or 10 hours. So at the moment for my next book, I'm in the making things up stage. So I write approximately 2 to 4 hours a day. And then I try to have a sort of thinking session in the evening where I think, but don't really expect myself to put anything down on paper.
So as you're writing and creating your storyline, is it something that I've seen authors that use Post-it notes or have a big bulletin board and have the string going to, how do you process your storyline
Well, it used to be, I used to have a very long piece of paper, like several meters. You could buy it in Sweden on like you roll out to use for children to paint on. So I've used those in the past, but now, and come with me and I'll show you my hallway. I've discovered this amazing thing. It's a whiteboard plastic that you can attach to your walls, and it's just like, I think, static electricity, so it doesn't damage the walls, and you can easily remove them. So this is part of my next book.
Oh wow! And can we have a little teaser about what your next book will be about?
It's about it's a cozy crime series. So it's about a Swedish English writer who solves crimes when she should be writing. So the first one has just been published in Sweden. She's in a small town in Cornwall in southern England. And she has retired there because she's suffering from writer's block. And she's sure that she's going to find inspiration in the air in this small, slightly dying Cornish town.
So what made you write a mystery this time? What?
I've always wanted to write a murder mystery. I mean, I grew up reading Agatha Christie and all these stories. There's such a lot of those really great, still cozy crime. I mean, it's not too bloody. There's a very slightly explosive tea party in my book, but it's still nice reading. I can't really handle if it's too bloody.
Right.
So this is still relatively tame.
So are you hoping to create a series based on this character?
Yes, I am. So I'm writing on the second book now. So it's an entirely new thing for me to be able to come back to characters and keep developing them. That's my dog you hear in the background.
Fine. We're all animal lovers.
That's good. That's good.
So this book that you just recently published.
Hmm.
Do you have any control over when the books are translated so that they're sold in other countries?
And no, my agent is handling the sale of it. So I don't think anything's been decided yet. And then, of course, it has to be translated and then eventually, hopefully, published in the US.
Yes. So,
but I can't say anything at this point about when.
Okay. Oh,
there he
there
is. Terrorist.
We have a lot of folks in our library that are cozy mystery readers and love cozy mysteries. So
going to grab him.
He just wants a little attention, that's all.
Yes.
So of all of the books that you've written so far, which one was the most enjoyable that you wrote?
Oh, I think it's this last book I wrote that hasn't been published in the US yet. This cozy crime about Berit Gardner, my Swedish writer detective. And the reason it was so enjoyable was that I wrote it during the pandemic. And the pandemic, while horrible, of course, in every way, it also reminded me about something that I've known all along, basically, that you can use books to travel if you can't travel physically. So it was a reminder for me to both read as a way of travel, but also that I can do the same thing when I'm writing, and I can make things up. So I physically might be stuck in Stockholm, but I could always just grab my pen and paper or open up my computer, and then I would suddenly be at an English pub in Cornwall having a pint and some vinegar chips. And
so have you been to Cornwall before?
Yes, I have. I actually did a trip researching it. So I traveled along the coast. It was epic.
Nice. That's great. So you can really write from firsthand experience what the feel is and the atmosphere. Yeah, excellent. Of your other books that you've written, I know we've talked about you're hoping this mystery book becomes a series. Would you ever write a sequel to any of your other standalone novels, or you just want to leave it be?
I have to admit, I feel a certain longing to go back to Broken Wheel. I mean, I miss the people there. It would be lovely to revisit them. But the bad things about sequel is that the very first thing you have to do is tear up all your happy endings. So you have to start over again with new troubles and new problems to all these long suffering people. And the funny part about being a writer is that you have to be so incredibly sadistic to all your characters. I mean, a book is basically just bad things happening to good people until hopefully they live happily ever after in the end. So I'm slightly reluctant to tear up their newfound peace. But I have been thinking about perhaps writing a prequel. It would be very nice or fun to get to revisit Broken Wheel, perhaps when Amy was still alive.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes.
So maybe one day.
Because she was such a memorable character in the past, in the past tense, because she was gone in the beginning of
very much a part of the town.
Yes. Oh, that would be wonderful. That would definitely be a book group book choice that I would want to read with my group, because we loved Broken Wheel. It was just such a great story.
I'm so glad to hear it.
So when you're what do you like to do on during your downtime when you're not writing? What are some of your hobbies?
Well, I read a lot. That's the boring answer. So usually I read or write, but I have to admit, watch quite a lot of TV. Of course, I watch it as research. So at the moment, I'm watching all series of Midsummer Murders. This amazing English detective series about a very murderous couple of villages. But nowadays, of course, I'm also spending quite a lot of time with this little
creature.
Exactly. Looking cute and quiet now.
Yes, because he's you know, he wanted to be part of the interview. So
And he was sure
now
that
he's
your reading
happy.
group wanted to meet him.
Right. Yes. So, do you have any favorite authors that you like to read that we would recognize? Do you read mostly Swedish authors? Do you read American authors? What do you prefer to read?
I think, I mean, I read widely, basically anything, but you know, probably mostly Americans.
Okay.
I have so many favorites, so I'm not even sure I can mention, you know, a few, and then because then I'll just worry about all the ones I didn't mention. But at least I have to. Fanny Flagg is, of course, a huge favorite with me. I love her books, and I love also the movie. Bridesmaids with the Stop Cafe. It's one of the few books I think that was also almost equally good as a movie.
Yeah, we read the Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop, I think last year, and everyone loved it because, you know, primarily we read books. One of my book group ladies, Phyllis, she's always asking can we read a book with a little meat in it, you know, like just not all fluff and but there comes a time that you read some really heavy books and you need a break and you need something more pleasurable. But yet it's going to touch you as well. And this is why reading your book, I think, was a great choice for the summer. And we're reading The Tattooist of Auschwitz next month. Which was on the list prior to the pandemic, and I had to rely on just ebooks because we weren't receiving deliveries, and it was just really difficult. So I added that book back in, but you know, there's all different. Even if it's a fiction book that's just. I hate the name chick lit because it's just not, to me, that's not really a genre. But, you know, sort of like light fiction or something, but it's relatable. And that's how I view your books, that they're relatable and you really feel like you're bonding with the characters. And I think that's really special when authors are able to do that. And like you said, Henny, she's just going to live on in the back of readers' minds just because of her legacy and the way she touched so many lives. And you know, it's just, I'm in awe of writers that are able to create these stories and characters that really resonate with folks, and I do have to say that it's amazing for anyone to have that special gift and share it with others. I think it's great. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I so appreciate you agreeing to this interview again, all the way from Sweden.
It's my pleasure.
It was amazing.
Nice chatting with you.
And you know, like I said, it's just been great, and everyone will be so excited to see you. It's one thing, you know, when we have our discussions and I put a slide up about of the little author bio with the photo, or sometimes I'll attach a brief little YouTube interview when I send out an email to the group. But this is just so much more personal, and I just think it's amazing. So I'm going to stop recording, but hang tight because
but please, just also, I'd love to hear.
Where do I stop recording? Right up here. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Katarina. Hold on one second.
Thank you for having me.